What is up, Janksters? It's your boy Graham, also known as HamHawks42 on the internet, and today we are going to be discussing some Explorer and Pioneer bans. That's right, June 7th, yesterday, the ban hammer came down on two cards specifically in Pioneer and one in Explorer. Well, they're two cards, one of which impacts Pioneer and Explorer. And if you want a long-form video of me explaining my thoughts on this, along with my buddy Hollywood Pizza, please click the link up above and also in the description. I would appreciate it very, very much. We have a long-winded discussion where we actually go into our thoughts on bannings, this ban in particular, and how it affects the various formats. But this video is just a quick rundown to give you an idea of kind of where I sit on this ban, and kind of where things shook out. So, the two cards in question, Winota, Joiner of Forces, banned in Pioneer. Now, it was banned in Explorer a couple weeks ago now, and at the time, the dialogue was saying that they were going to be reevaluating that and possibly bring Winota back into Explorer. Instead, apparently, they reevaluated the Pioneer metagame and realized, nah, she's problematic over here too. I appreciate that consistency. I do. I think it makes a lot of sense. And if the card is powerful and a problem in one format, there's a good chance it's going to be powerful and problematic in another. So that makes sense. The other card that was banned was Expressive Iteration. Now, this is an Izzet card that has shown up everywhere. Every Izzet deck, or every deck with blue and red in it, loves Expressive Iteration. The card is incredible. It's the closest thing we have seen to spend 2 mana, draw 2 cards, probably ever, which is why it sees play back into Legacy and Vintage, because cards like this just don't exist. And it's really powerful, like really powerful. And I can understand why it was banned as well, because of its high adoption rate. Every Izzet deck out there was running this. That said, I've played it before. I've played with it. I've played against it. I love it when my opponent taps out on turn 3. I love it. It feels great. You feel like $1,000,000 because there's a good chance that they're going to get a tap land into play with this and have all their lands tapped on turn 3. So on my turn 3 or turn 4, if I'm on the play, I have an opportunity to get around any kind of counter spells. I have one free and clear turn. So that is a huge cost that this card has that seems to be overlooked in the discussion. So that, I think, is noteworthy. And at the end of the day, to be honest, I don't know that Expressive Iteration was worth the ban. I don't know that it was bad enough. It was highly consistent. It was in a ton of decks. But if that's the case, Meathook Massacre could have been banned a long time ago. Fable of the Mirror Breaker, again in Standard, I'm thinking specifically. These cards have incredibly high adoption rates across their colors. Like, Fable of the Mirror Breaker is in almost everything right now. If there's red in it, there's 3 or 4 Fables. It's just what you do. Am I calling for a Fable of the Mirror Breaker ban? No. That's not my point. I'm just saying the precedent here with Expressive Iteration is that the card is good and strong enough to merit inclusion in a number of decks. A high number of decks, a high percentage of decks. There is no deck, I believe anyway, there's no deck in any format that was created and defined by Expressive Iteration. I don't think that existed, but there are Izzet decks that were made significantly more consistent and significantly more, I don't know about powerful necessarily, but just more consistent. That's really the bottom line. They were just more consistent with Expressive Iteration around, and apparently Wizards was concerned about that consistency or the high adoption rate. And because I don't know the stats, I don't know the numbers. So the adoption rate could have been alarmingly high. Like, there could have been a 65-70% meta game share of this card. I don't know. And if that was the case, then sure, that makes sense. That would see the ban hammer. But in general, like, I've been playing a lot of Explorer, and I haven't had that moment where I go, oh man, Expressive again? Never. I've never felt that. Meanwhile, with Winota, I've had that thought, oh man, Winota again, because the game's over. Like, when Winota drops, the game just ends. Now, the other point that I do want to make sure that I make, because I feel strongly about it, Winota is a card that delivers a death blow to your opponent if certain conditions are met. And that death blow can come as quickly as turn 3 or 4 on a semi-consistent basis. There is another card in Explorer right now that is very popular because it can do that exact same thing. The conditions are a little bit different. The deck that it fits into is not as flexible as the Winota deck, to be fair. But that card is Greasefang. Greasefang Okiba Boss. Now, this card is not banned, but it delivers a very similar experience to Winota, where if it hits, when it hits, the game is over and there's very little you can do about it. You may be able to respond at instant speed with removal, Again, exactly like Winota, if you have instant speed removal in the right moment, Greasefang can bite it. If you don't, though, and this can happen as quickly as turn 2 in certain decks, Greasefang Okiba Boss just pops off and the game is over. So while I wasn't necessarily calling for a Fable the Mirror Breaker banned in Standard, I am looking at Greasefang and wondering, why is Winota ban worthy and Greasefang is not? That's something I genuinely don't understand. Am I calling for the Greasefang banning? I try not to call for bannings. I feel like it's not productive. I feel like it's kind of a waste of everybody's time and breath, frankly. But at the same time, I guess it's kind of what I'm doing here. Like, I look at Greasefang and I genuinely wonder why it exists. It seems a little too powerful in my opinion. But we'll see if that shakes out. We'll see if anybody else agrees or disagrees. Please let me know in the comments. If you do, I would appreciate your feedback on this very, very much. But that at the end of the day was the announcement. Winota joined our forces, banned in Pioneer, Expressive Iteration, banned in Pioneer and Explorer. So these are now out of the mix. These are very powerful cards that are no longer available to us in those formats. I'm okay with that. I'm actually a big fan of creativity, which comes from not indomitable creativity. I mean, trying new things in Magic. I'm a big fan of trying new decks and new styles, and bans help encourage that. So I don't love bannings because they are kind of a feels bad for sure, and my heart goes out to everybody who bought Pioneer Winota decks. I'm sorry, like that sucks, like, because that's an investment you're just out, and I'm sorry, that totally bites. And I feel for you. It hurts. I don't know what else to say other than I'm sorry. That does suck, but it is what it is. And at the end of the day, for filthy arena players like me, who just spent all the money on getting their collection anyway, an individual deck isn't really an expense in my opinion, or at least in my experience. But I know it is in others. So I'm sorry. Anyway, thank you so much for checking out the video. Thank you for hearing my thoughts on these bans. I find them interesting. Obviously, I have a couple of thoughts. And again, if you do want a full breakdown with more deep dives into this topic, please check out the video with myself and Hollywood Pizza. We go into much more detail about this and other bans and some other cards. He and I actually we get together along with Hearsay TTV quite a bit over on the Pizza Box MTG channel. I would highly recommend, if you are not subscribed to that channel, please do. If you enjoy hearing my thoughts on things, I share them over there quite a bit as well. So as well as Pizza and Hearsay, who are just and a number of other creators actually contribute gameplay footage over there for drafts and meta commentary. It's actually a lot of fun. So I'd highly recommend you give it a shot. Thank you so much. I'll catch you on the next one.